First, I just want to say thank you for everybody for coming. And I'm reading from a new piece. It was just recently workshopped, so a couple of you probably recognize it. It's too long to read all of it, so I'm going to skip around, but we'll start with the beginning and then we'll hit the highlights. So it's called Rising Moon Thing. She was born with a hole in her stomach, a terrible birth defect or some such that the doctors did not detect in utero. They brought her into the world through an artificial slit they cut into her mother, and with two gloved and bloodied hands, pulled her, kicking and screaming out. It was not a large hole, surely not large enough that what was inside came out. Instead, the muscular wall of her abdomen helped to form a sort of cavity, through which one could peer into her and glimpse the slipped intestines sleeping like snakes. A half-moon sliver of stomach, the forest green gallbladder like a thumb peeking out from beneath her liver. Aside from the postcard-sized hole, she was a healthy and normally formed baby girl, her complexion pink with cheeks rosy from the failed pounding of her mother's uterine walls, and a head shaped like a cue ball, bald and perfectly round, for she had been feet first inside the womb. And here the docs aren't able to close the hole, but they managed to work around it, so she lives, and her parents call her Bee. Bee lived, grew. Never a terribly vital child, she remained small, scoring in low percentiles for her age group. Wide-faced but not ugly, plain but freckled with shiny teeth and fragile limbs. The young parents quickly became seasoned parents, their nerves set to the hair trigger for any warning sign that hospitalization might be in order. Bee did not run or jump, but played nicely, seated, and under parental supervision. Her entire existence seemed something left to chance, or fate, or some forgiving God who might rescind favor at any given moment. Bee's consciousness as a living, breathing, and thinking organism came into being at the same time that she became aware of her ownership of a body, all its nooks and crannies and folds. The existence of the hole in her abdomen opened up the queer possibility that she was not only a mind or soul, though because she was a child, the mind and soul remained abstractions she could not possibly understand, not in the way she could explore her corporeal body with curious fingers, with her very own eyes, but also that she was a collection of things, of parts, an animation of flesh and bone. "Mommy," she said, a crying child, "Mommy, why don't you have one like me?" The young mother often gave the girl sponge baths to prevent water from forming inside her, and Bee insisted that they take their clothes off together, fascinated by the seemingly familiar yet different parts that made up her mother. She fit her small hands over the toughened scar under the curve of her mother's belly. "Did you ever have one too?" she said. "Yes," her mother said. "The doctor had to make me like you to get you out." "I was in there," Bee said, eyes wide, fingers splayed in your tummy. "Yes, you were," she said. "Was there anybody else there? Was I all alone?" "Yes," her mother said, "just you." "Are there any more babies in there?" Bee watched her mother's stomach, fascinated that something could spring forth from it, a sister or a brother. "I don't know," her mother said. "How long was I in there?" "For 9 long months." "But why?" Bee said. 9 months seemed an unfathomable amount of time. "Did you put me in timeout? Was I bad?" "No," her mother said. "We had to get ready for you to burst out." So Bee went to school, and the children were cruel to her, as children can be. On the playground, they asked, "Can we see your guts? Why doesn't your blood fall out and go everywhere?" Bee did not yet have the words to tell them the neatness of her body, of their own bodies, that they were not sacks of blood and organs sloshing around in some bag of skin, as they seemed to think. They were ordered, all delicately connected. But the children were also curious of her. There was one boy, and he was 9, and at the age where he was obsessed with his own bodily secretions. When he came over, he wiped his boogers on her mother's couch. His name was Jack. Bee's mother put together play dates and served them lemonade and cookies on the back porch. While they played, she sat in the air conditioning, for her belly had begun to grow and swell again, and she craved strange foods, only orange foods, carrot cake with pumpkin icing, and mango smoothies sweetened with mint and honey. Having spent much of her life indoors under her mother's worried eyes, Bee cherished any time allowed outside. She dreamed of camping, of jumping in creeks. They were to play on the porch and drink the lemonade and eat the cookies and leave her mother alone a while, so she might do something she described to be as gestating, some process that involved reclining back on the daybed beneath the window and lying very still. Concern for sudden or jarring movement, worried her forehead lines, a concern that predicated itself on the provocation of some catastrophe that Bee did not understand. But on the porch, Bee had Jack and they played, and he had many annoying questions. "I want to see it," he demanded of her. "No," he said, "you have no right to her. You can't." "Is it like a pouch or a pocket?" he said, "like the kangaroos at the zoo?" "No," she said, "but you can feel in there." "Yes," she said, "of course." "What does it feel like?" he said. "I don't go around sticking my fingers in," she said. She remained bandaged and shut away to minimize the possibility of contamination. "Well, why not?" Jack said. "I want to." "Because it would hurt me. It could make me sick." Jack held up his toy fire truck. He brought with him a bevy of trucks and brightly colored blocks and dinosaur figurines. They'd been waging a war between the trucks and dinosaurs using the wooden blocks and ammunition. "Isn't there space?" he said. "Would this truck fit?" "Can't we play like normal?" he said. "But you could carry so much in there," he went on. He piled his toys together. "I bet we could build a pyramid with all of these. Then you'd always have something to play with. You'd never be bored." She had never thought of it that way. Jack grew animated, wiped his runny nose excitedly with the heel of his hand. "Just think, you could shovel your guts to the side and fit whatever you want in there." His eyes gleamed with imagined adventures, pirate games where Bee was the treasure chest, and cops and robbers where she could be the safe. "And crack the open," Jack said, "and gold would pour out." The promised sibling gestating in her mother's belly never arrived to play with Bee on the porch or in middle school when the dentist cemented braces to her crooked teeth. Not then, and not later, beyond first bras in the beginning of high school. It so happened that at 17, little Jack, who had remained Bee's friend but had also grown into Big Jack, 6 feet tall and whippet thin with the appetite of a horse, decided to test the boundaries of their friendship, to Bee's delight. "I'd like to take you on a proper date," he said. "Where will we go?" Bee said. The fair was in town. Bee saw him winning her a giant teddy bear at the ring toss, the two of them sharing powdered funnel cakes in the grass, the Ferris wheel at dusk when the lights of the makeshift park came on and spun in neon blurs. When he came to collect her in his car, like a real gentleman, her father said from his recliner in the living room, Bee's mother sat on the bottom step of the staircase that fed into the foyer. They had a nice life, a dining room to the left with a grand table they never used and place settings for 8, and a second room off to the right where her husband, Ray, hauled in and tied down the Christmas tree each year, the first weekend of every December. Bee kissed her mother's cheek before she went, then spun to the door. She wore a frock with a skirt that swirled when she turned, something too bare and short for the chilled weather of October. But her mother said nothing to her, and Jack offered her his coat and led her to his car. Her mother sat on the step, perhaps thinking of the vision her miraculous daughter presented. Some ghost lost in time, Bee thought, as Jack led her down the front walk. She was about the same age her mother had been when Bee came into being. At the fair, they did all the things she imagined they would and more. The grounds offered strange smells and noises, and belted to deceit, fright, and delight. Danger in the cranking rides, the dark tunnels of adventure and daring. Men missing teeth took tickets at these doors, leering at her. Jack put his arm around her waist and they walked together, people watching. "Have you ever been afraid?" he asked her. "Of what?" she said. They passed by painted billboards advertising grotesque sights, a teacup-sized horse, a man with the head of an alligator, a woman with the body of a snake. A hidden speaker repeated their 30-second life stories over and over, the voice reverent and enticing like a preacher. "Of death, of dying," Jack said. "There have to have been scares." "Yes," he said, "plenty." She didn't understand what he was asking. He had witnessed many, had sat by hospital beds, patted her hand after operations. The younger boys and girls ran by and around them and paid 50 cents each for a glimpse of the snake woman, the teacup horse. How easily that could have been her life, he thought, open and on display. "Will you have children?" Jack asked suddenly. "Would you bring a child like that into the world, a child like you?" Bee removed his arm from around her shoulders. "Why do you ask that?" "I'd like to know," he said, "for the future. I think about these kinds of things." Bee looked down at her belly, the hole concealed by her lovely dress, behind bandages that kept out the slow creep of death. In the crowd that streamed around them, she imagined she saw the promised sibling, the child that lay years ahead of her, her mother on the step as she walked out the door, her form lounging on the bed beneath the window, so still to keep everything inside. "Yes," he told him, "I would." Even if there were something, and here he chose his words carefully, different, like you. "Yes," he said again. She looked down and saw it clearly. The small potential of life she carried within herself was neither abstract nor ignorable, for the once thick and pear-shaped womb stretched beyond its limitations, the rapidly growing mass of cells within it pulsating and moving of its own accord. The rest of her, B, would move up and make space inside for it as the pregnancy progressed. The rising moon of the thing within, this something new, would press against and displace her insides, and yet contain more within it than she could ever fear or imagine for herself. So yes, she could find peace in the terror of that, of the womb pushing up, out, beyond, into the world. Thank you.